Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are going to check out another brand new TNG release, and this is one that I'm really excited about because it's been a little while since we had a dinosaur, and we mostly have been getting prehistoric mammals, which is not a bad thing. You know, we don't get very many prehistoric mammals in any sort of prehistoric line, but now we are going to return back to the dinosaurs with some fun here as we have the Cryolophosaurus, and this is one that I am very excited about because we've got a really cool kind of feathered interpretation of a Cryolophosaurus, and that is definitely something that I don't have from anybody, so very cool. You can see, again, we've got the species name, the TNG logo, and then an image there of the Cryolophosaurus. And then here on the side, we can see prehistoric Jurassic. And then if we take a look here at the back, again, same thing as far as that. But then here on the side, we do have some information on the species itself, which is very, very cool. So without further ado, let's pop the box open and check it out. And here is our Cryolophosaurus, and what a beauty that is. That is definitely a really, really nice looking figure. I love that it's got this kind of crouching pose, very similar to the PNSO Utyrannus, which was one of the initial reasons why this figure created a little bit of controversy, but I think the pose is quite nice. Definitely, you know, a little bit different from what you see with most dinosaur figures, although it's been used a few times. We have the, of course, I just mentioned the PNSO Utyrannus, but there's also the Acrocanthosaurus from Papo that shares a similar sort of stance to this one, but it definitely is very cool to have a feathered take on a Cryolophosaurus, and honestly, the paintwork on this is fantastic, and that's one thing that always impresses me about the TNG models is how good the paintwork is, and that is absolutely the same case with this one, which is very exciting to see that the paintwork is so good, you know, on the dinosaurs as well, because again, we primarily have been taking a look at prehistoric mammals, and I wasn't too sure how good the paintwork would look on the dinos, because although the paintwork of the Spinosaurus was really nice, I don't remember being completely blown away by the paint apps. It wasn't until we moved into the mammals that I really started to get impressed by the actual paint applications of these figures, but honestly, the Cryolophosaurus has fantastic paint apps, so let's go ahead and jump to a closer look at it right now. So, starting up here at the head sculpt of our Cryolophosaurus, you can see again it looks really nice. The actual sculpt is very highly detailed, very nicely done. We have really crisp detail here on the face of the Cryolophosaurus, and I love that you see the skin texture here. Very briefly, as we move back into the snout, you can see the feathers kind of overtake the majority of the face, and they're very fine feathering here beginning in the face. The skin here has like a very dark tone of color. You can also see the nostrils right there, but as we move back, we start to get variations of kind of like off-whites and browns and stuff. There's definitely a lot of color here on this figure, and definitely right here in the face. As you move back into the eye area, you can see a little variation of a darker tone there underneath the eye. The eye itself has a beautiful blue, and then a really nice gloss coat that shines very nicely, looks very, very realistic. As you lead up here to the top of the head, you of course have the crest for the Cryolophosaurus. You know, no Cryolophosaurus would be complete without it, and you can see that they've given it a really nice orangish tone here to make that stand out. Again, exactly as you would expect for a crest of a Cryolophosaurus, and the actual detailing of that area as well looks really nice. We do have an articulated jaw, as always, and you can see it opens very nicely. The inside of the mouth sports some nicely sculpted teeth, nicely painted teeth as well. Very, very nice, very careful paintwork. You can also see a brown kind of running along the jawline, adding a little extra color variation, which is pretty cool. You've got the tongue sticking up there on the inside of the mouth. That as well has some nice texturing to it. You can see the tongue actually sticks up off of the lower jaw a little bit, so then when the mouth is open, it kind of gives it the visual of letting out a vocalization. We also have some nice light tones of color there for the inside of the mouth, as well as a beautiful gloss coat, making everything shine. And the actual detail in there looks really, really nice. Definitely very highly detailed. Look at that. That is awesome looking sculpt and detail for the inside of the mouth. So very nice, very precise paintwork, which is something I'm coming to learn is associated with TNG. Their paintwork is always on point, and that's exactly the same case with this Cryolophosaurus. And you can see that jaw is super smooth and works perfectly. Really, really nicely done. As you move down here into the neck region, you have this variation of color here that begins up in the eye socket that leads down here, runs along the side of the neck, kind of like yellowish browns. But as you move up here to the top of the neck, if the tail doesn't get in the way here of the camera because it kind of leads up, you can see a really nice looking blue up here on the back of the neck, as well as a striping effect moving down. Let me see if I can get a better shot. There we go. You can see that kind of striping effect moving down the course of the top of the neck with that really vibrant blue. Definitely love the addition of that blue. And then as you continue to move along here, you see the feathering kind of picking up in size, becomes a little bit scruffier as you move into the body, and you can see all sorts of variations of those, again, yellowish browns and darker shades and lighter shades, just kind of designing here through the course of the figure. As you move down, you can pick out the muscle definition quite nicely in the arm, and you can see that we also transition to a darker tone here for the fingers and the hand, and that's of course because we can see where the skin is up here in the face. We have that darker tone. As you move down here, the feathers taper away into the hand, and you can now see the skin of the fingers, and again we return to that darker tone, and we do have a light gray for the nails there as you lead down into the fingernails of the hand. But as you move back up, you can kind of see the stomach region a little bit right there, but this leg is mostly obscuring it because the Cryolophosaurus has taken a pretty big step forward, so you can see it's really obscuring the stomach. We can't see a whole lot of that going on, but you see more of that kind of designing and stuff with those lighter tones of color, as well as the generally light tone. It's like a light gray for the majority of the body, but you can also see the really nice kind of scruffy feathering here as we are getting further into the figure. It definitely becomes more of like an emu-like feathering rather than the fine feathering that we see in the face. As you move down, you can see the muscle definition in the thigh, as well as a bulging calf muscle. You can see feathers kind of hanging off of the back there of the thigh as well, and you can see the underside sports a beautiful bluish tone as well, which is really, really cool. Love the color scheme chosen for this. As you move down, you can make out the knee right there, but you can again see once the feathers kind of taper off and we lead into the foot sculpt, we return back to that darker tone again with the gray nails. You can see some nice scoots down the toes as well, and we do have dew claws right there, you can see, which is really nice. But as you lead back up, we return back into the tail here with this designing, again, those lighter tones, which I like that they've put quite a few variations of color in there. Like you can see, almost like outlining it with a darker tone, and then there's a few different variations of lighter tones within the inner parts of those areas, and it looks really cool. But as you lead out into the tail, you can see we've got a really nice curve. It does lead in an upward position, and at the end of the tail, we have a nice little area of feathering. If my camera would focus on it, there we go. You can see that has, again, the light gray, but also some of those variations of blues, which looks really, really nice. Definitely a big fan of that. And you can again see here, as we lead along the underside, we have those nice light blues running through the course of the entire underside of the figure. Now over here on the opposing side, you can see the head's kind of facing away from us a little bit. The eye paint looks great yet again, as does the paintwork and sculpt work here of the face in general. As you lead down here into the neck, you can kind of see the neck tensing a little bit, but obviously you can also see it kind of facing away from us, and you can see that this hand is down on the ground touching, so the fingertips there, or the nails pretty much, are the only thing that's really touching. That does help to support the figure, help to give it a little bit of balance, which I also think looks pretty cool because it just gives it a really neat dynamic pose, almost like it's chasing something down and it had just leaned down maybe for that kill shot, and then the animal had taken like a left turn, so now the Cryolophosaurus is kind of trying to quickly turn and follow it. But here, as you lead back into the stomach, you can definitely get a much better visual of the stomach over here because the leg is trailing so far. You can see some of those really cool bluish tones leading up into the side of the stomach here. Some more of those, again, lighter yellow and brownish tones showing back up here. And then as we move back, you can kind of make out the hip bone. You can definitely see, again, that the leg looks really good as it's stretched back. You can see the toes curving here as the foot's leaving the ground, as the dinosaur is taking a step, clearly. Really nice looking sculpt there to the foot, again, turning back into that darker tone as we lead down. You can now see the dew claw on the opposing foot. And then as we lead back up here, you can see again the tail looks pretty much the same as it did on the initial side, except now it kind of curves away from us, where you can again see those tail feathers right there. So the Cryolophosaurus is definitely another beautiful figure, and I'm really hyped to finally have a very cool kind of feathered interpretation of a Cryolophosaurus in my collection. As far as a size goes, it's pretty small overall. For a length from the snout to the tail, you were looking at, I would say a little over 7 inches, like 7 1/8. and then about the 18 centimeter range. And for a height to the top of the tail is definitely the highest point. You're looking at about the 4 3/4 inch range, or right around 12 centimeters, maybe a hair over. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Cryolophosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our Cryolophosaurus. And you can definitely see, again, it's got a pretty small size to it. It's definitely not overly large or anything like that. Doesn't take up very much room in your collection if you do decide to purchase one. And that can, again, sometimes be a good thing, sometimes be a bad thing if you prefer larger figures, but I think it's a really nice, very convenient size, and honestly, pretty much in the size range I would have expected for a Cryolophosaurus. And then for another comparison with some randoms, we have the Safari LTD Utyrannus, the Schleich Dioploceratops, and the Collect Day Deluxe Dimetrodon next to our Cryolophosaurus. And you can see that they are all, you know, a little bit different as far as the size goes, but he fits in nicely overall with these other figures here. And specifically, I think the one that would probably be the most interesting to see next to it would be the Utyrannus. So you can see if we put the Utyrannus behind it, they're a very similar size. Like if we had put the tail of this down, it would be a little bit longer than our Utyrannus, but not too far off as far as the size between these two. We've also got a comparison here with a Mattel Velociraptor. Again, you can see the Utyrannus is a little bit smaller, kind of, maybe similar in size, I would say, but maybe just slightly smaller than a Mattel Raptor. Then one figure that I really wanted to bring in for a comparison is the older Safari LTD version of the Cryolophosaurus next to our TNG version, and you can see they're kind of similar in size overall, but the Safari version is definitely a little bit longer. That tail is really quite long on that version. And then for a comparison with the Utyrannus from PNSO, because originally a lot of people were kind of claiming that this figure, the Cryolophosaurus from TNG, was a clear bootleg of the PNSO Utyrannus, and I tried to argue this fact on a few different Facebook groups, and I was pretty much assaulted for this, you know, difference in opinion, but clearly I was right, because you can very much so see that there are a million differences between these two figures. Are they in somewhat of a similar pose? Yeah, kind of. They're both crouching, I mean, at the very least, but there's just so much difference between these figures. It is insane. But you can see the head sculpt is very different. You can see that the positioning of the neck and head is very different. The positioning of the legs, even though they are similar with the right leg trailing and the left leg forward, they're still different in positioning. The entire foot is different. Even the positioning in the area that the knee sits is different compared to the Utyrannus. The shape of the tail, the direction the tail is leading, it's all very, very different between these two figures. So very clearly these figures are not associated with each other, but they do still share kind of a similar stance. But you can definitely see again that the Utyrannus from PNSO is a little bit larger than our Cryolophosaurus. And then for one final comparison, we have another TNG figure here, as we have the Woolly Mammoth, which is the most recent figure that I had reviewed of the TNG line, for a comparison next to our Cryolophosaurus, just to show you that they're not super far off in size, but obviously the Woolly Mammoth is a bit larger. So this brand new TNG Cryolophosaurus is absolutely fantastic, and definitely another really cool figure coming from this line. I'm so happy that this line exists, because not only are they giving us some amazing figures, but they're very reasonably priced. And that is definitely very, very exciting to get figures of this high quality at such a good price, because this is like, I forget, it was somewhere between $15 to $20 for this Cryolophosaurus, and it is without question worth that price. The sculpt is really nicely done, very highly detailed, very crisp, very vibrant detail throughout. Nothing on it looks even remotely muted. It looks as high quality as it honestly could get, and it has a really cool visual of a feathered Cryolophosaurus, something that we haven't had really that I can remember from anybody so far, so that's really cool. On top of everything, the pose is also nice. I like the positioning of the figure. I think it creates a nice kind of dynamic pose. The overall appearance to it definitely helps to give it the ability to add into dioramas and stuff very easily. You can definitely create some very cool dinosaur toy photography with this figure. The articulated jaw is also very smooth, works really nicely. The paintwork is also extremely well done. The paint scheme and everything looks great on this. I really think it's a very nice naturalistic paint scheme. Could potentially be the coloration of a Cryolophosaurus like this. But on top of that, the actual application of that paint is super nicely done, really smooth, very nice transitioning back and forth, very nice, very precise and careful paintwork, especially when you look at the eyes and mouth area. Very, very well done as a whole. So if you are interested in grabbing this for yourself, and it's a huge recommendation from me for sure, I will include a link in the description to where you can do that from Lana Time Shop right now, because that is where I purchased mine. So make sure you check that link in the description. Go grab this absolutely gorgeous Cryolophosaurus, and also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.